Hello, bruvs. We're back with The Seven Deadly Sins. Chapter 1, I believe, is by Angus Wilson. Yes. Envy. Angus Wilson. With some, it is said to begin in the cradle. The milk they suck turns sour on them as they think of the richer draught on which the infant Earl is feeding up at the Hall. To discern this is, no doubt, one of the painful, intuitive powers of a mother. And there's a chooch. At least these underprivileged infants must be free from the hideous, extra distortion of smiling, of putting on a brave front demanded by society, of the envious in their adult years. These babies are, in any case, infant prodigies. The first twist of envy in the guts comes for most people over a decade later, perhaps on that proud occasion when they first see their name in print in the local or even national newspaper, or more humbly, but no less devastatingly, in a long typewritten list set off against a background of green baize. As examinations increasingly determine the irrevocable status of human beings, come, that is, to shape the second or social self which a man must carry around with him for the rest of his life, these first stabs of envy will no doubt strike more people, and earlier, and more cruelly. But that momentary sick green pallor which, at the sight of the rival's name set above his own, robs the schoolboy's or schoolgirl's face of its natural healthy glow, does not, of course, mean that he will become an addict to the pleasure pains of envy. That emotion, like its twin, jealousy, is after all abnormally in evidence in our school days. It is then that the competitive spirit, fostered by the closed hothouse atmosphere, twists and twines its liana grip around the lives of the young. A bracing preparation, it is said, for the jungle world to come. Yet, even among these young envious, there are some who will never be free from the pains again. How can one distinguish these, so damned at that early age, probably by the way in which they meet the school's other little preparation for the jungle to come, the demand that they shall lose with a good face? Save the boy or girl who can show enough annoyance to give vent to his feelings, even allow himself an open expression of regret at the success of his particular rival, and then pass on quickly, but not too quickly, to the next business of the day. This train just isn't going to quit. Damned, of course, the boy who slinks off with twisted face and slouching gait, or the girl who bursts into tears of rage. Twice damned the boy who tries with an affectedly adult drawl to express his contempt for the exam, his surprise that anyone should have expected him to do any better or his rival less well. Twice damned the girl who now suggests that boys her dress had taken up all her preparation time, too late for such sophisticated excuses. Not to have worked hard in preparation for examinations appears in elegance only in the successful. Yet there is worse than this. Thrice damn the wretched creature who rushes off to mingle with the congratulatory knot clustered round the winner, who feels it incumbent as the loser to make the presentation speech at the celebration party. Her face will wear that painful grimace of sour good loserliness again and again in her coming life, until at last she is never quite parted from it, in constant expectation of the next stroke of good luck that will come, of course, to her neighbor, but never to her. His voice will take on more and more the envious friend's strange, hearty tones that somehow come out as a snarl, that jolly laugh that always turns into a snake-like hiss before it has died away in the air. as in those awful post-exam days their rival's name seems to be on the whole school's lips. So in the future there will always be one name among all the many that they envy, which will haunt and taunt them wherever they go. On bad days, for the chronic enviers have their billions, or their bilious, black, bad days, that rival's name will seem to stare from every poster and be carried on the wind from the conversation of every chance passerby. Envy will by then have become their overriding emotion, a secret shame to hide and to hug, a poisonous habit-forming drug they cannot live without and must die from at last. What drives a man first into this hopeless pantomime of pretended ease and insouciant longing? Not chiefly, I think, social opinion, the continued voice of the school demanding from him a show of good sportsmanship. Much more, I suspect, the secret, sly pressure of those already addicted to envy. Any contorted grimace intended to mimic happiness is worth attempting, if it can hide us from the searching eye of other envious men who seek by their commiseration to enlist us to their lost brotherhood. Yet, just as, with wrenching effort, you bring yourself to utter that friendly, carefree, jolly good, or well done to the man who has taken the prize from you, the lurking envy addict catches your eye, lets you know that for him at least your words did not ring true. The happy act must be of a high standard, if it is to deceive him. Once recruited to the mysteries of the envious, committed to the little cruel digs of false comfort by which they communicate with one another, only a miracle or a stroke of good luck can release you. If you could arrange for a complete stranger to leave his fortune to you, or persuade some lunatic chairman of the enterprise with which you have no connection to offer you a well-paid sinecure on the board, if, with no preliminary ado on your part, the most beautiful and popular girl in your circle should fall for you madly, if by some freakish change of the wind you could yourself become Adonis overnight, then you could be released from the iron circle of envy, which slowly but surely is narrowing and strangling your life. But then you would have had good luck, and by their very definition of themselves, the envious never have good luck. That is the property of those whom they envy. There is no other means of escape. You can never release yourself by your own efforts. That's the first rule of the game. You may try to use the very force of your envy to lever yourself out of your unenviable position. You may, for example, if your envy is all-consuming, become a revolutionary. In the opinion of the established, all revolutionaries are actuated by envy. But the most successful revolutionary of this kind, and there have been many, may well see his hopes destroyed by the absurd idealist with whom he has to work, men who have some ridiculous vision of a changed order, whereas all he wishes is to take over the old one. Even if his sort of revolution wins the day, which it usually does, he is no better off, for he knows too well the signs of envy not to be aware of the glint in the younger comrade's eyes, and he begins to envy his former security. And thus it is with the more conservative individualist envier who uses the heat of his envy to blaze a trail from log cabin to White House. It has not needed Mr. Brain to suggest the torments at the top. Envy may be the motive force of social movement. It is also the reason why we have so little social originality. For envy can never be creative, only imaginative, only imitative. I'm botching this. So the envious boy must join the rat race, and the envious girl too. If she settles for marriage, her envy may turn to the simple day-to-day pangs of keeping up with the Joneses. These immediate, more material, feminine envies are sometimes smiled at by the trains, by the ambitious as a petty, narrow-ranged. Yet the truth is that envy has a wonderful power to reduce the loftiest ambitions to a petty scale. It doesn't much matter whether your face turns green on reading a letter from number 10, or at a certain page of the Times, or at the management's typed notice on the office wall. You still have the lurid look lit by the fires of hell. It doesn't much matter if you rise to your feet to congratulate Brown in the mess room or the senior common room or at the local. Your hearty laugh will still carry strange echoes of the cries of the damned. Ambitious clergymen, service officers, and shop stewards appear to suffer most, but this is surely a freak of the spotlight. After all, for some, such as actors and writers, envy is so endemic that they have to adapt their lives to it. In these professions, there is often no longer a concern to disguise the emotion, only to serve it up more palatably. Green room cries are surely hardly intended to be taken seriously. Darling, you are wonderful. I hope the blissful play runs forever and ever, is said with a sort of formalized wink to the company which invites complicity with the envious congratulator and is declared insincerity. Some envious women, too. I mean here not those who have joined the career's rat race, but covetous housewives, dress envious beauties, frustrated lion-hunting hostesses often have the simple wisdom to adopt some such formalized cries to carry them through their nasty moments. I suspect that such caricatured insincerity, or at least a ridiculed version of the envy one feels, is the best that the poor envious can do to avoid being an object of disgust. That lovely hat, darling. No, I mean it. Well, look at my face. It's green. Such simple words invest the truth with a certain charm and even make the envied woman appear somehow a little shameful for wearing a hat that arouses such painful emotions. It is certainly the only possible channel between the rocky coast of grimacing pretense and graceless sulking. Some, it is true, have tried the charm of open admission. I know an author who greets the success of others by saying quite truthfully, "I wished you dead when I read that good notice your book got last Sunday." But however endearingly Rufo the grin that accompanies it, there is something too consciously violent here in the treatment of convention. Be open rudeness done never so easily, it nearly always suggests a struggle within the speaker that he would do better to conceal. Almost all the other deadly sins can be made to sound charming. Pride has its rights, anger its justice, acedia its world-weary languor, lust its manly necessity, and gluttony its boyish absurdity. But envy never wins more than the sympathy that stokes the burning fires. And yet I inevitably find myself trying to gain sympathy for the envious. In part, this is, of course, a search for sympathy for the envy in myself. Very few are without envy, and no writer is without a good share of it. But the desire to condone extends beyond myself. Those willful, beautiful orphan girls of Victorian novels who were consumed by their envy for the spoilt darlings up at the Hall, who can blame them? It was all very well for Mr. Meagles to urge Tattycoram to count 24. But why should she not be transported with rage at the sight of the adored pet Meagles? No more beautiful than herself, and a great deal less interesting. It is worth noting that the envious always feel themselves more interesting than those they envy, who possess only the obvious graces, like beauty, wit, money, and good luck. This is but natural, for interesting suggests the half-hidden wealth, virtues still only potential, and the envious must exist on belief in their potentialities, since envy makes nothing for them of anything they achieve. But to return to Tattycoram and other underprivileged girls, there is a simple reason for deploring their envy. By it, they are paralyzed in sterile emotions. Because of it, they are unable to assert their claims to recognition. And so it is, I suppose, with all the underprivileged, the old poor, the new poor, the crippled, the loveless, the socially outcast, the ugly, the boring, and those who spit when they speak and there can't be many of us who can opt out of all these categories. Anyone who has no compassion for our grievances has lost humanity, but anyone who palliates our envy seeks to destroy us. The most absurd yet frightening envy in fiction, I believe, was created by Hugh Walpole in The Old Ladies. It is possible to sympathize with the fat, lonely old woman who wanted the silly old maid's amber so much that she frightened her to death. Let's have a pause for the train. The endless trains. But if we go farther in our sympathy and extend it to her envy, we not only find ourselves making light of the silly old maid's fright so terrible that it killed her, but we accept the awful, distorted face of the old woman in her envious lust. If we followed such aesthetic guides in our reprobation of envy, we should not go far wrong. For envy, again, wears an uglier face than lust's bloodshot eyes, or gluttony's paunch, or pride's camel nose, or avarice's thin lips. This can be seen in the most distressing... God, just sit still, bored. Fuck. Pardon. This can be seen in the most distressing, foolish envy of our time, anti-Americanism in Western Europe. To me, European anti-Americanism is plain silly because it is suicidal. But there are, after all, not only communist, but tolerably argued neutralist views about this, and at times American policy inclines one to sympathize with such views. There are grievances against America which deserve consideration from everyone, but anti-Americanism is quite another thing. It is an impotent envy which does nothing but disgrace the speaker. Listen to any county Englishman or his wife, who in dislike of the changed English social order seeks refuge in anti-American talk. Hear the silly bray of their laugh, the frightened note that underlies their jokes about American brashness or crudity. Or almost worse, hear a group of rich, beleaguered French or Italian or Spanish describing the necessity for a civilized Europe where American barbarism cannot interfere. There are few more nauseating sounds in the modern world. Nauseating because, like all envious sounds, they make one feel ashamed for the emotions that the speaker is betraying. And the same goes for anti-Russianism, where it is solely built on hopeless envy. That, of course, is why envy is so unenviable, a dominating emotion. All the 7 deadly sins are self-destroying, morbid appetites, but in their early stages, at least lust and gluttony, avarice and sloth, know some gratification, while anger and pride have power, even though that power eventually destroys itself. Envy is impotent, numbed with fear, yet never ceasing in its appetite, and it knows no gratification save endless self-torment. It has the ugliness of a trapped rat that has gnawed its own foot in its effort to escape. Well, at least the second half of that essay was salvageable. The first half was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Almost as embarrassing as my handling of this book, but what do you expect? I'm trying to not destroy the spine while holding this on the back of a Ouija board. So there you go. 1 chapter down. Goodbye, bruv. Goodbye.